So I'm a trained public health worker, and public health is a social science of medicine. What this means is that we are taught to teach you how to take care of your health, your physical health, your emotional health. So in an example, I want you to give me a guess. What do you think is the mental health equivalent to hand washing? You see, we wash our hands all the time. Mama, you stopped washing your hands after the pandemic lifted. You still wash your hands. So what do you think is the equivalent for your mental health? One person meditation, someone else. Sleep, resting, someone said resting, someone else. Crying. Feeling good. Okay. It's actually breathing. A lot of us don't know how to breathe. And so I want to invite you to practice a breathing exercise. So if you're holding anything, watch out, release anything you're holding. If your hands are crossed, uncross them. If your legs are crossed, uncross them. So this is a very basic breathing exercise. It's a counting technique 1 to 10. And so that you're in your body, I'll invite you to listen to your senses. So I'm going to guide you through this. And the importance of us learning how to breathe is because conversations around mental health, emotional health, we use the word triggering, will trigger some things, but the psychological word is actually activation. You'll feel activated. And when you're activated, a couple of things start to happen to you, which I will talk to you after we breathe. So I want you to look around, note 5 things you can see. And seeing is just color, me, people, just... and then close your eyes. And then I want you to bring your attention to your ears. What can you hear, including the sound of my voice? Bring your attention to your nose. What can you smell? Bring your attention to your tongue. What can you taste? It's one thing for me to come and talk to you about what mental health is. It's another thing for me to show you what it is in practice. So this is going to be an experience of what it would look like if we came to train you at your workplace. The topic of today is emotional intelligence at the workplace and practicing it. We keep being told we have to be emotionally intelligent, but nobody is showing us how to practice it. Mental health is often conflated with mental illness. So people talk about it like it's the same thing. But mental health has 4 main elements. The first one, which is a lifelong question we are consistently asking ourselves. Who am I? What's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing here on earth? That is the first pillar of your mental health. And you will appreciate that when you do not know who you are, you actively feel mentally distressed. When you keep asking yourself, what is my purpose? You feel mental distress. And so it's a lifelong question because depending every season of your life, you figure out, you unlock a new level of yourself. The second element that makes mental health is coping with your day-to-day stressors. There's a lie we've been sold that stress, siku moja utaamka na hutakuwa na stress. That's a lie. Stress is adaptive. And so the point is to first of all, figure out what are the things that stress you out, and then how do I cope with them in a healthy way. That's where the universe of self-care comes in. The third element that makes mental health is working productively. And that's why we're here today. Because work is an essential component of who we are. So what is work to you? What is productivity to you? Are you a morning person, night person? Are you a quality person, quantity? Are you a person for vibes? Are you a person for implementation? What does work mean for you? And figuring out what work means for you. There's someone earlier who talked about boundaries. I realized juicy work for me, working productively equals setting boundaries. The fourth element that makes mental health is contribution to community. any single thing that you do for yourself has a direct return to community. And if it does not, you experience two extremes. Either you're isolating yourself or withdrawing yourself because community is too much and overwhelming, or you become a nuisance and you disturb us. Tunajijua. And so the point of this is to recognize that the definition of mental health has absolutely nothing to do with mental illness. And that everybody seated in this room, those 4 elements are consistent lifelong work. And that's why paying attention to your mental health is important. And you can't take care of your mental health without ever becoming mentally ill. And so what is the definition of mental illness? So first of all mental illnesses are health conditions. You did not wake up, you did not imagine it. And the thing that you need to recognize is, if cholera affects your stomach, COVID, your lungs, then what does when we talk about being mentally ill, what's being affected? Your emotions, your thinking, your behavior, or a combination of the 3. And so understanding how your brain works is imperative. Because if you do not understand how your emotions work, how your thinking works, and how you behave, then you imagine that people who are mentally ill are the mad people on the streets with no clothes, shouting and screaming, while you yourself could also be on the spectrum. And so with that in mind, when you feel stigma on mental health, stigma is an irrational fear of something. Irrational because you cannot explain why you're afraid of it, but you're just afraid of it. And when you're afraid of something, your defense mechanism will kick in. And a big part of the work that I do, the work that my company does, is through mental health education, we eradicate stigma, but we also give you practical wellness skills. Keyword is practical. And that's why today, it's not death by PowerPoints, it is a practice. And so I want to invite you to the first page of your worksheet. That very, very, very colorful wheel. In the world of emotions, as you can see, we have many things going on with us. Very many things. All those words, all those are possible emotional states you could be in. But the thing that you're going to recognize very quickly, and actually I want to ask, what is anxiety in Kisii? What's schizophrenia in Luo? What's depression in Kikuyu? What's the word for it? Kaudo. I don't know. Kaudo funny. Exactly. So the thing you're going to recognize very quickly is that in our local languages, we don't have names for these things. And if something doesn't have a name, does it exist? If it does not have a name, does it exist? Let us have a very candid conversation about the state of mental health care in Kenya. Right now in this context, in the workplace. There's a study that was done in April of 2015 by a guy called Michael Freeman. And that study is called Are Entrepreneurs, quote unquote, Touched by Fire? And it's the only study of its kind where I'm challenging you, because we need to put a lot more research that is Kenyan based. And this research came up with, it was a research on entrepreneurs and their mental health. And compared to the general population, entrepreneurs are 2 times more likely to have depression, 6 times more likely to have ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I don't like using that disorder, just language, but just for purposes of reference. 3 times more likely to abuse alcohol and substances. 10 times more likely to have bipolar. 2 times more likely to be admitted because of a psychiatric condition. And 2 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts. That's a lot. That's intense. And so if this is the person who has begun the business and is running the business, and they're this marginalized and vulnerable, then what is happening to their team? So also, what does your workplace look like when it's mentally or emotionally unwell? Quiet quitting, team bare minimum, absenteeism, presenteeism. Those are the ailments that are ailing our office spaces because it's unbearable. And so then you quietly quit. So you're just taking a salary home, but you're not interested in the work you do. You're doing the very bare minimum, just enough to not get fired and to get your salary. Another study was done this year as well, not this year, sorry, last year, on death by suicide. Heavy topic. And currently, we are losing about 4 people to suicide every day in Kenya. And the thing that a lot of us don't realize is death by suicide is a very intense way to die. And 135 people are personally affected by one death by suicide. That means as we speak, there's 6.3 million Kenyans a year walking around with a wound that they do not know what to do with. And by the time you're dying by suicide, that is the last symptom of your mental health being absolutely compromised. And I want you to remain challenged, because by being in this room, it's an indicator that you're interested. You get? And because you're interested, then you are, in one way or another, an ambassador for well-being at the workplace. That after today, you're no longer saying, sijui na feel aje, niko tu, I'm feeling a type of way. Nah, today you've learned how to talk about your feelings, how to label them, how to recognize, how to express yourself.